you had to split it up so that you had 2 pins. This one you have to split up so that you have 3 pins.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, so you have 400 feet of fencing to build this corral with, okay? With little sorting pins in it, okay? So yesterday, do you remember what we said the rule would have to be?
I think I got it.
To get the maximum area?
Got it.
Okay, what would it be?
You could do 100, 100, and then 50, 50, 50.
Okay, so
That's maximum.
100, 100, 50, 50, 50, because you know that the total lengths have to add up to the total widths. So my 450s add up to 200, and so do these. And then put those together, and I get 400. So the total on your widths should match the total on your lengths. Okay? So the question is, what dimensions would maximize area? 50 by 100. Okay, 50 by 100. Okay, so what if they actually asked you for the maximum area? What would that be?
Times 50.
Right, so the actual maximum area would be 5,000 square units. So they could ask you for that. Square feet. Okay? All right, so number 10 is a very similar problem except for what?
We have 780 feet of
Okay, what kind of a pen are we building this time?
rectangular.
Okay? But we only have 3 sides of fencing because they're going to use the what?
The creek has one.
Yeah, they're going to use the creek as one side, which, you know, wouldn't work with my cows, but maybe it does with theirs. 3 sides. 4 sides are just using the creek. So the same rule holds. It's still the total lengths have to add to the total widths, or equal the total widths. And I have, how much? 780. So what's 780 divided by 2?
Why do you have to do that?
Why do you have to divide by 2?
No. See, like, if it's just 3 sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you just do 780?
The rule
divided
is
by
still
3?
the same, because that will not give you maximum area.
390.
We can try
That'll
it.
be the most equal, right?
Okay, well,
equal
let's.
on both sides, because that'll be.
The rule is the total lengths have to equal the total widths. Okay, so let's try it. What is it divided by 3?
260.
260, so each of these would be 260. All right, well, what would the area be for that thing? What's 260 times 260?
67,600.
7,600?
Oh, wait, no, I think I did it wrong.
260 times
No,
260.
67,000.
67,000, okay. Well, let's shrink this down and we'll draw another one. Oop.
I'm just, because when we did the square, it had more area than the rectangle, so
Yeah, it did. So we're just going to test it and see if it works. If I can get this shrunk. Okay, so doing it that way, you get 67,000. Let's do it my way. Divide the number by 2. What's
780 divided by 2?
780 divided by 2?
That's 390.
Okay, so that means I need to use 390 here, and then a total of 390 for these two. So what's 390 cut in half?
195.
Okay, so 195. So now find that area and see if it ends up more than
76,050.
76,050. So this one has more area than this one. So the square only works if you've got all 4 sides.
Way off.
Okay?
That wasn't even that far off.
Yeah, well,
It's like 8,000 off.
this one, so the rule is your total lengths have to equal your total widths, and I only have one width. Okay? Does that make sense? Everybody okay with that?
You enjoying your pudding? While we're talking about?
Maybe you should be writing your stuff.
Among all pairs of numbers whose sum is 15, which pair has the maximum product?
7 and 8.
Why do you say 7 and 8?
Because of the numbers, yeah.
Because of the what?
1 and 15, it'd just be 15 square feet.
Okay, so 1 and 15, if you multiply those together, you get a 15. As the numbers get closer together, these also have a sum of 15, but these give you a product of 56, right? Okay, so you're right, the closer together the numbers get, the higher the product's going to be. But it did not specify that I had to have integers. So is there a decimal that I could use that would be even closer together?
No.
What about 7.5 and 7.5?
That would give you like,
No.
What's it give you if you multiply them together?
56.2.
Ah, 56 and a quarter. Now, if it would have said integers in here, then we would have had to go on with 7 and 8, but it says among all numbers. Okay, so I can include decimals as well, and that's as close together as I can get.
yeah, 'cause
So-
this is half.
Find the pair that has a maximum, has the biggest product, so your answer is the 7.5 and 7.5. That's the pair of numbers whose sum is 15 and has the largest product. Does that make sense? Everybody okay with that? All right, so let's do number 12. Okay, this one's a little tougher, not one we can really have a shortcut for. It says, among all pairs of numbers such that 3x plus y is equal to 19, find the pair which the sum of squares is minimum. So first of all, among all pairs, it's basically saying of points on this line. So that line right there, if you were to write it in slope-intercept form, would look like this, negative 3x plus 19, right? So what they're saying is, among all the points that lie on this line, and there's an infinite amount because it includes decimals as well, among all the points on that line, which point would make this come out the smallest?
0, 0.
Nope.
Wouldn't that just be 0? Can you even get any lower? I guess you can go.
Yeah, because you can go negative.
You can just keep going
Right?
more negative.
Yeah, but which one would give us the absolute minimum? So to figure that out, here's what we're going to do. We're going to write a function for the minimum using the variable x. We already know it's x squared plus y squared, but because I'm writing in function notation, I only want to use the variable x. Well, what is y equal to? I can replace this y with what?
Y equals negative 3x plus
No, so I can write this function using only x's by replacing y with a negative 3x plus 19. We okay with that? All I've done is substitute negative 3x plus 19 in for this y. Okay, well, if I can get this thing all worked out, I'll have a quadratic function, and I know how to find the minimum on a quadratic function that would happen at the vertex. So I need to simplify this. How do I simplify this thing?
exponent.
Negative 9 squared. Plus,
Square the first, square the last, multiply and double, right? So if I square the first one, what's negative 3x times negative 3x?
9.
9x squared.
9x squared. Okay, if I square the last one, 19, what's that give me?
361.
361. And now, if I multiply these two together and double them, 3 times 19 is 57. Double that, you'll get what?
14.
So negative 114x plus 361. And now I can put these two together, which gives me a 10.
How's that go? Multiply.
Square the first, square the last, multiply and double. So when I multiply these,
Square the last.
multiply and down. Yep. So 10x squared minus 114x plus 361. Okay, so now I have a quadratic in standard form. It is a happy face parabola. So my happy face parabola will have a minimum at its vertex, right? How do I calculate a vertex?
Negative b.
Negative b over 2a. So negative b,
So 114 over 2 times
10, will be 114
over 100.
over 20. 2 times 10 is 20. Reduce that and you get 57 over 10.
Yep.
So that's the x value that will give me a minimum. So I'm looking for, remember, I'm looking for the point on this line that makes this the smallest it'll ever be. Okay? So 57 tenths, or 5.7, is the x. Now, when I go to find y, am I going to plug it back in here? Or am I going to plug it back in here?
I'd plug it back into the top one.
Right, because it says to find a point on this line, right? Find a point on this line that gives you a minimum here. So I figured out the x value on this that gives me a minimum, but I want to plug it back into here because I'm actually looking for a point on this line, not on the parabola, right? So I plug it back in there. So now I've got y is equal to negative 3
Times 57 tenths.
over 10 plus 19, right? So if I was doing this, I know that's 5.7. Anytime you divide by 10, it just moves the decimal over. I'd probably type it in the calculator as 5.7. But if you want to use the fraction, that's perfectly fine too. Negative 3 times 57 divided by 10 plus 19. If you type that in your graphing calculators, what will it come out to as a fraction? Graphing calculators?
Fraction.
How do you guys get that?
Plus 19.
We have it in
You have a mixed number.
you have it in a mixed number.
It's 19 over 10.
So yeah, go to your mode button, and there's two things you have to change. You have to change the top thing to fraction, and then down a little bit lower where it says fraction, you want the n over d, not the u n d,
We love you, man. But come on.
to get an improper fraction. So the point that I use for my answer is 57 over 10, comma 19 tenths. That's the point on this line that will make this come out as small as ever.
What do we need that for?
To stretch your brain, that's why. To stretch your brain. All right, everybody okay on that one?
Now we can do this stupid graph.
Do we have the graphic?
The number of people.
All right, so you got a small cruising ship that can hold 60 people. It provides 3-day excursions to groups of 36 or more. So 36 is the smallest number of people you can take on the ship. If a group contains 36 people, the owner charges $64 per person. The cost per person is reduced by $1 for each person in excess of 36. Find the size of the group that maximizes the income for the owner of the ship. So I basically listed all the possibilities out here, which you're probably not going to want to do that when you're working the problem necessarily. But you can see if you have 36 people on the ship, the cost is $64. And then as you increase by 1, this decreases by 1, right? So why 50?
You multiply those those are the two biggest numbers in the middle.
When the numbers get closer together, the closer together the numbers are, the higher your maximum should be, right?
Yeah.
So we would assume that 50 is the correct number of people. But we had to,
That's the highest number of cost too, pretty much. Like when you're going down, like it's not like the highest, but like it's the highest number of people with the highest cost.
yeah, so it gives us maximum income, right? So here's what it would look like if you didn't want to make the chart. Okay, are you watching, Dylan? So the income for the owner is the number of people times the cost per person, right?
Yep.
So I could write number of people as 36 people plus X. In other words, I don't know how many I'm going to add, I'm just going to call it X. Okay? And that has to be multiplied times the cost per person. Well, the cost per person will be 64 minus X. Because if you're going to add 3, then you would subtract 3. If you're going to add 5, you would subtract 5, right? Does that make sense? For every person I add, I subtract $1 here.
Yep.
So for every X that I add, I subtract an X for the price.
Yep.
Okay, so that would make a quadratic if I multiplied it together, correct? Multiply that thing together, I will have a quadratic, and then I can use the vertex to find the appropriate number for X to maximize my income. So what's 36 times 64? 36 times 64.
2304.
2304, okay? Then I can take this times this, and this times this. That gives me a minus 36 and a plus 64. Minus 36x plus 64x,
Do you combine those?
and then, yes, minus x squared. So what do I get if I combine those?
36. Yeah. Well, negative x squared plus. Or, I guess you subtract.
So 64 minus 36.
It's just 36.
would be what, 28, 36, 46, 56, 28. So 28x minus x squared. So now I have a parabola. So if I want to know the maximum, I'm going to do a vertex.
Opposite of D over
So
2.
negative 28 over 2 times negative 1. Now, remember, I didn't rewrite the order here. This is my A, this is my B,
my
this is
bad.
my C, right?
Over
So 14.
Yep.
So x is 14. Now, 14 is not the answer because they didn't ask you how many people should you add, and maybe they will. You got to pay attention to the question. This particular one says find the size of the group. Well, we started off at 36. I'm going to add 14 people, so that means the size of the group should be 50, just like you said earlier, right? Okay, so I can take that 14, add it to that. Now, they may ask you, how many people should you add? If they ask you that, you give 14. If they say, what's the size of the group? You say 50. If they say, okay, what's the maximum income for the owner? Then that would be 50 times 50, right? So you have to be careful about what they ask you, because they could ask you any of those 3 questions, okay? How many people should you add? 14. What will the price be at the maximum level? $50, okay? So they could ask you any question. So don't just look at this and assume that because the answer was 50 on this one, that that's the same type of answer you'll give on your problem, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, that's it.